Welcome to the REI Diamonds Show with Dan Breslin, your source for real estate investment jewels of wisdom.
Welcome to the REI Diamond Show, this episode with Aaron Hendon on real estate blind spots. Dan Breslin here, host of the REI Diamond Show. Today, Aaron and I discuss the psychological aspects of dealing with buyers and sellers as both a real estate investor and as a real estate agent. We will also touch on the ways that this impacts the negotiation of any sale of residential real estate. Aaron is about to release his new book, Real Estate Blind Spots, which will dive much, much deeper into a few of the topics and some more than the topics that we have time to discuss here on this episode. Oh, and the most valuable jewel of wisdom on this episode will be about two-thirds of the way in, where we discuss the process and script for getting the absolute top dollar for your property. If you flip houses, or if you are a real estate agent representing sellers and you are not already doing what we discuss here, you are leaving big money on the table, especially in the red-hot market that we are currently in now in June 2017. So let's begin, shall we? Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me on. My pleasure to be here.
So just for everybody listening, you are from which real estate market, and what is it that you do there currently?
I currently live on a small island off the coast of Seattle called Vashon Island, and this general Puget Sound is my market. So Seattle, Tacoma, the surrounding towns, the areas included in the Puget Sound. And I'm a residential real estate.
Residential real estate agent, investor, which both?
Mostly an agent, but I've been an investor, and I'm an investor when the deal is right. And right now in Seattle, the market is so inflated, so rising so quickly, it scares me. I prefer to buy when everyone's selling, and everyone is buying right now. So I will sell my stuff now.
So, Aaron, do you want to kind of tell everybody how you got started and what led to you getting into real estate and what your business looks like today?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. I got started in real estate. I had various sales jobs in the past, and I was an entrepreneur. I started my own bakery at one point. I was a baker for many years. At some point, I got right in the sort of the heart of the, recession, depression, whatever, the great shakeup, right, 2010. I got let go of the job I was at and needed something to do. I found a job selling credit repair services. And on the phone, I was just basically a smile and dial, calling people. They would give me the leads. I would call them and try and sell them credit repair services. And being entrepreneurial, I thought, who do I know that could have an access to people that need credit repair? Like supplying me good referrals. And I thought, realtors. My friends that are in real estate should know people that have bad credit. I talked to them. And they, to the one, said to me, listen, man, if you're dialing 100 numbers a day, you should be in real estate. Because anyone who can dial 100 numbers a day can kill it in real estate, and the commissions are a lot better than what you're getting paid. And it took me about a year to actually believe them. Once I did, I just thought, all right, I'm going to make the leap, and I got it worked out with my family, and I made the leap. It's been the best decision of my life. Really, one of the things I count as the smartest decision I've ever made is getting into residential real estate. I just love it.
For me, I agree. It's the smartest decision I made. I was kind of led by circumstances out of almost desperation, coming from a place of, no money, no job, no car, and kind of landing on my ass in life, for lack of a better description that would be more realistic. We stumbled upon the real estate investment seminars, and one thing led to another, and then I got into wholesaling and flipping houses, and needless to say, I no longer live, at the time I was living back at my mom's house, and I no longer live back at mom's, and I'm no longer on the bus. So, yeah, definitely a smart decision. I'm sure a lot of our listeners would agree with that, residential real estate. So what makes up the bulk of the business today? I mean, where are you finding success? Where are you winning big in the Seattle Puget Sound market right now?
Well, about 60%, a little more than 60% of my business is referral. So friends, sphere of influence. A lot of my business comes from that. So I attract that kind of thing by just being proactive on social media, proactive with calling them. I was actually just phoning my spheres today, right before this podcast. That was my list of people to call. So I'm always calling people. And then the rest of the business is made up of some combination of internet leads, prospecting, other kinds of phone circle prospecting, either just cold calling or expired and for sale by owners.
About how much would you say an agent should be spending? Is there a percentage or dollar amount on leads such as internet sources? And also, could you give us an example of maybe what internet leads actually are found? Are we talking Zillow, Trulia, pay-per-click?
So it really, the amount that you quote unquote should spend is so, that's like someone asking me, should I buy or should I rent? I don't know. We got to look at your particular circumstances. Everyone's different. Every human being is different, and every circumstance is different. So, listen, you shouldn't spend a dime on internet leads if you can get all your business elsewhere. That would be great. You shouldn't spend a dime on internet leads. If you're not going to answer that internet lead within 5 minutes, don't spend a dime on it. They're going to be gone within 5 minutes. You've got to, if you get an internet lead, you got to call them. And that's anything from. We use a platform called Commission Inc., which is a CRM. A lot of people were familiar with Boomtown. It's the guys that started Boomtown now started this thing called Commissions Inc. It's basically a platform. They handle all the advertising. They do Facebook advertising and, SEO, Google AdWords, things like that. And the leads come through on the back end, and then there's all sorts of drip campaigns. And I can text from my computer. I can send them automated texts, automated emails. I can speed dial them. I load them up into the Mojo speed dialer, and I call them. So if you're not going to, those internet leads, if you're converting 4% of them, you're doing good. That's a high conversion rate, and they take a long time to convert, usually a year. People get in the internet pipeline way early in the process. So again, if you don't want to pound them and you're not willing to follow up with them and nurture them for a year, don't pay any money to get them because it's burning cash. Spend your money doing something else. And that's the great thing about real estate. Is there's so many ways to get business. You definitely can get business any way that you're comfortable doing it. As long as you're willing to talk to people. Any way you want. There's just a million ways to do it. There's no right way to do it. So I don't have an answer to the question, how much should someone spend? Our internet leads, we don't spend any money on Zillow or Trulia leads, but I know very good friends that spend $10,000 a month, and, they're multimillionaires. They have a business that, I'm in awe of. And all they do is, create their business from their Zillow lead. So it's a viable model. It works for some people. And your job as a realtor, you're starting a business. You're an entrepreneur. It's a startup. You got to figure out what your niche is, what you're going to do.
Yeah, you're right about that. I have, in my business, so a lot of our audience is investors, and we have a lot of agents who are also in the audience, and a lot of the agents are going to be listening are geared toward investor business. Now, me personally, I've had, I guess, a struggle early on, not as much now because we've gotten to the point where we've grown so large as a result of paid advertising, but I'd look at other flippers, who are doing fix and flip renovations, Aaron, and I'd say like, man, if I could only, sit back like these guys, they have zero marketing budget, and I'm spending, at the time, it was probably like $8,000 to $10,000 a month on advertising. It's much more than that now. And I'm like, man, if I could just, do all the deals without any advertising costs at all, that'd be great. But the only issue with that is you can only scale so far based on, counting on referrals. There's not for me, there was no way to control the amount of, when am I going to get a call from my agent in Evanston with just that perfect deal that comes on the market that I'd have to go bid up, so it was like a little bit of a passive thing. And one of the points that you did bring up, you sort of touched on, was the process behind the lead follow-up. So if anyone, is listening here as an investor, wholesaler, or agent, and you're thinking, maybe just getting started and thinking to yourself, should I advertise and get some leads cooking? You got to be able to work the leads. I mean, you have two parts to the successful business. You have being able to generate the leads, number one, so that you can then, number two, perfect the process, perfect the skills of going out to the living room, closing the business, follow up, put them in the pipeline, the drip campaigns, etc. And those are two very valuable, pretty masterful skill sets over the course of time that develop and create like even greater amounts of success. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. So Aaron, I was checking out your blog, and you had mentioned that you were writing a book called Real Estate Blind Spots. Is that something we could touch on right now for the audience? Okay.
Yeah.
Want to fill us in? What are the real estate blind spots, Aaron?
Well, there's so many ways I've discovered, I've been in this side of the equation. I was an investor before, but I've been on this side of the equation for about 5 years. And as what I consider to be someone new to the business, bringing new eyes to it, I could see all these ways that consumers are operating in ways that don't work in their best interest. I really got interested in why that was. And I got interested in how to empower people to make better choices. And so a couple of things, and I talk about more of them in my book, but a couple of things that I think are the blind spots for people are things that they do when they're, for example, when they're going to look for a realtor. 70% of all people buying a home will use the first realtor they talk to, the first realtor they interview. And that to me is absolute insanity. And I have been interviewed, so I know this. I cold call people, and I know if I show up at their house and I'm friendly and confident and somehow we mesh, on a personality level, I got a really good chance of getting that job. And I can't think of another job of consequence that people take as lightly as hiring a realtor. That's insane. That's like, this is the most expensive thing people buy. This isn't about investors. Investors do this all the time. It's a different deal with an investor. But, an individual selling their home or buying their home, they're going to do that 4 times in their life, in their entire life. And that is the most expensive thing they're ever going to own. It's not one of the most expensive things. It's the most expensive thing. And they are going to pick the person to represent them in that transaction by looking at stars on a website. That's how you pick how to go to dinner. That's where you pick, right? I mean, you look at Yelp and you go, "Hi, honey. Oh, Bob says this restaurant is a good restaurant. Let's go there. Oh, Bob says this is a good realtor. Let's use him." Are you joking? That's the due diligence you're going to do for the most expensive thing you own? And, by the way, realtors are the least trained professionals in the world. 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks to get trained to be a realtor. You know how long does the person that cuts your hair get trained?
7 months?
No, 1,000 hours.
Okay.
1,000 hours. 90 hours to be a realtor. 1,000 hours to cut hair. The haircut I get cost me $25. This person's going to hire me to sell their $500,000 house. It's crazy. It's crazy. So I think that's a blind spot for people. I think that's something that people don't understand why they do what they do. I don't think they're cognizant. I don't think they're dealing with. I can actually hire someone. I'm hiring someone to represent me in the most expensive transaction of my life. And this person needs to be vetted. And I'm going to have a rational way to vet this person. And they don't. I think that's a blind spot for people.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I took the real estate licensing classes myself in Pennsylvania, not to get my license, but early on as an investor. I just kind of wanted to go through the experience and hear the lingo and see what kind of information was provided there. And one of the things that I was appalled by was the fact that there was zero training whatsoever on the ability to evaluate the value of property. That's always one of the biggest problems, underpricing or overpricing the property. I mean, either one can be detrimental if it's not handled right, for the actual end sale price of the property. And I was amazed that, there was the creation of a blind spot in my 40-hour, 80-hour class, however long it was. I don't even remember. I didn't, like I said, take the test or become an agent myself, but there was the blind spot, that you're kind of mentioning, at least for me, and my perception is the issue is a lot of times I remember when I first got in the business, I'd have agents bringing real estate deals that I was supposed to buy as an investor, and they're telling me that, oh, yeah, this property's worth $300,000. And, luckily I didn't buy into that and buy the property at, full retail price at the time because I did at least have some people around me who were guiding me in the right direction. But, I can see how many investors are being led astray and purchasing properties for just way too much money, especially in this kind of market that we're in here in June 2017 all around the country. Aaron, you mentioned a couple other ones. I looked into the blind spots, and I didn't have time to read the entire article, but you were talking about some stuff that I'd kind of border along psychology or statistics having to do with, representativeness. Is that something you can kind of like delve a little deeper into for me?
Yeah. I didn't know how in-depth you wanted me to get. But so that phenomenon of how they choose a realtor, let's just go back to that. So that got me really fascinated. And the thing that got me fascinated really was no one's ever asked me for my track record. You know, we sell homes, my team sells homes for 5% more than local averages. Year in, year out, somewhere between 3, 4, 5%. We're always above local averages. And when I'm being interviewed, no one's ever asked me, hey, how much over local averages do you sell homes? No one's ever, they don't ever ask about it. Well, that's really what you want, right? You go to sell a home, you want to get the most money in the least time. So you should ask people that question. But they don't. And I was like, well, why don't they? You know, what stops them from doing it? And I read this great book called The Undoing Project. Michael Lewis, the guy that wrote Moneyball and The Big Short, great guy. So The Undoing Project was the work of the psychologists of Danny Kahneman and Amos Tversky, who created the field of behavioral economics. And they identified some mental shortcuts that people take, human beings take. They're called heuristics, but you can think of them as biases or mental shortcuts. So, for example, when you're going to hire a realtor, okay, you are hiring one. If you're not doing due diligence, you're not actually asking to see their last 12 months of sales, have yet to meet anyone who says, bring me your last 12 months of sales. I want to compare them to the other 5 realtors I'm interviewing. No one's ever said that, right? I bring my last 12 months of sales, but no one's ever asked me for it. But given you're not actually doing the due diligence that you need to do to confirm who of these clowns is going to be the best, right? Because we're all pretty much clowns. What do you do? What is the process for that? Well, one of them is availability. Availability is a mental shortcut that people take. What it means is because it's available, because it's on the top of your mind, because it's easy to think of, you will give it more weight and more significance. Some ways in which this shows up is if you're driving down the street and you see a car accident. You notice how you now drive more slowly, more carefully after you see the accident than you were before. And then as you drive longer, for a long enough road trip, you're back to driving the way you were. It's because when the accident was fresh in your mind, the thoughts of what could happen to you in an accident were more available to your mind. Nothing changed about the conditions of the road. The road conditions weren't any different before the accident or after the accident. Your driving was different because the thought of what could possibly go wrong was more available to you. Another example of availability is, how people choose a realtor, frankly, is, I've seen a lot of their signs. Realtors are not the only people who play on this, right? This is advertising 101. You can only keep so many names on the top of your mind. Like if you ask someone for, name me a potato chip, people say, name me a potato chip. First potato chip you think of?
Me, Hers.
What's that?
Hers potato chips. Herrs. Probably a local potato chip company in Pennsylvania that we grew up with a lot.
Yeah, great. Okay, great. But that's because you grew up with it a lot, and it's right there. And the first national name you think of is, the first big brand name you think of is?
I would guess Lay's potato chips, but I don't eat chips, so.
I got it. Fine, but listen, but you don't even eat chips, and you know Lay's potato chips.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the point. You don't know Lay's, you don't eat Lay's, but you know the name because it's been ingrained into your brain. It's top of mind. So people see the signs in the yard of the guy that's farming the neighborhood. And that's literally what realtors call it and investors call it. You have a farm. You guys are farming something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So but the consumer doesn't consider themselves a crop. No one's saying this guy's crop, but you are. If you're hiring that guy because you see his signs a lot, you are their crop. That's 100% how it goes. And for the investors on the show that are out doing farming, you are clear. You must saturate their mind so they cannot think of another name when it comes time to sell their house. You've got to be the first. You've got to be the first there, and you've got to be most frequently there. And they will, because of availability, because of the mental shortcut that all human beings succumb to, will think of you first. And because they think of you first, they will think you're better. That's how availability works. Yeah, it's fascinating to me. It's like the most fascinating thing in the world to me. It's so irrational. It's unbelievable. Right, for the most expensive thing in the world. And, this is why realtors will tell you, blah, 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 I can sell your house for $400,000 even though there's no comps to support it, because they don't really care. All they want to do is put the sign in your yard. If they get the sign in your yard, they will get sign calls off of it, and that's one more sign in their farm, so more people will think of them. They don't have to sell your house to make money. They can make money without selling your house.
So what other mental shortcuts it doesn't even have to be a client. I'm just kind of interested in hearing a few more of these heuristics that, the mental shortcuts are taking for people. What would be another example of that, Aaron?
Yeah, my favorite is anchoring. And anchoring is where the mind gets fixated on a particular number. And then, or it really doesn't have to be a number, but just gets fixated on something. And then everything else that shows up gets compared to that. So sort of the classic experiment about this, and you can find this on a TED Talk, the guy Dan Ariely did this experiment with his students at MIT. What he did was he had an auction of sorts. So he had a whole bunch of sort of random everyday objects, a bottle of wine, a computer mouse, a textbook, things like that. Put them all on a piece of paper, talked about each one from the front of the room, said, here's a bottle of wine, this is what it is, discussed each one of them, and then had the students were going to write down how much they would pay for each item. Okay? But before they did that, they cast out the sheets with the bidding sheets with all the items on it, and they said, okay, now do this. Before you do anything, write the last 2 digits of your Social Security number on the top of the form. Put your name and your last 2 digits of your Social Security number. So for me, I would write 14 on the top of my sheet, right? You would write whatever the last 2 digits of your Social Security number on. And then next to each item, write your Social Security number as a dollar amount. So I would write $14 for the bottle of wine, $14 for the textbook, $14 for the computer mouse, right? All the way down. So everything was $14. Now, next to that, write down how much you would really pay for each item. And then everyone wrote down what they would actually pay for that item. So that's a random number. That couldn't be more random. You could do the score of the last football game. It doesn't matter what numbers they put down, right? The people that wrote between 0 and 20, I think the number is were willing to pay something like 346% less for their items than the people whose Social Security numbers were between 80 and 99. Just writing the numbers, these random numbers, writing them down next to the item, skewed how much they would pay for the bottle of wine by 346%, because the mind gets anchored to a number and then everything gets compared to that. So if you wrote 14, you would think the bottle of wine was worth less than if you had written 99 next to it. Just written it, and you knew it was your Social Security. You knew it had nothing to do with the value. It doesn't matter. Your mind doesn't care. So when you're going to sell a home, one thing that we started doing after I discovered this is, no matter what I do now, when I write up the description of a home in a multiple listing service that I'm selling, I always write some ridiculously high number in the description. I go, homes in this area have been selling for $925,000. This home at only $750, whatever, right? So everything gets written in there as a larger number, so my home seems reasonably priced next to that anchoring heuristic. And this happens all the time. This is not unique to this. This is not a real estate phenomenon. These restaurants do this all the time. They do this all the time and this is directly related to a phenomenon called framing. So framing is where you put a really high number and then you make the other numbers next to it look better. So if a restaurant wants to sell more expensive wine, they will put the bottom of the list, the most expensive bottles of wine. They will raise the price of the most expensive bottles of wine, and people will naturally increase the order of the second or third or fourth most expensive bottle. They will buy, because they don't think of themselves as people that would buy the most expensive bottle, but they're sure not going to buy the cheapest bottle. So how you get people to spend more money is you raise the price of the bottle they won't buy, and they will buy something less than that.
Does this anchoring phenomenon or do you have any examples of this anchoring phenomenon taking place with, let's say, sellers who have not signed a listing agreement or a contract or accepted offers? Do you have any examples where you've noticed this phenomenon taking place either to the detriment of the seller or the agent, or maybe to the benefit of the seller or the agent or the buyer,
Sure.
et cetera?
Well, think of the Zestimate. I mean, Zillow's now getting sued, right? But the Zestimate is 100%. The problem with the Zestimate is it creates an anchor. This woman's literally suing Zillow because the Zestimate is $150K, I think, under the appraised value of her home. So she can't get anyone in there to offer what the home is worth. Now, she's blaming Zillow, but fine, whatever. The point is, those buyers are going in, and they are anchored to this price. They have said in their mind, this is what this is worth. And you can show them the comps that say no, but it doesn't matter. It's already anchored. Zillow even took it down, but once it's there, it's anchored. Happens all the time. You go in to sell a home, you're going in to buy homes from people all the time, and they are anchored in some ridiculous number that their brother's cousin told them houses were selling for in Seattle, so that's how much they should get where you are. Or people think, when I'm taking buyers out to show them, they've been anchored on what they grew up with. Or they moved. This happens regularly too. We just moved from Kansas City. I just came from Kansas City. I had a 3,000 square foot house. We sold it for $500,000. Well, you know what you get for $500,000 in Seattle right now? A condo, a 920 square foot condo. You get nothing.
Wow.
You can't even, it's insane. Okay, that's another conversation. But they're like blown away because they're anchored on this vision of what they should be able to buy with that money. So it happens all the time. All the time people are anchored on stuff like that. The Zestimate is the most vivid sort of example about that.
That's funny. That, unless there's more than one that I don't know about, the house that is involved in the lawsuit with the Zestimate is probably 20 to 25 minute drive from where I'm sitting now in Chicago, just north of the suburbs. And so it's 20 to 25 minutes north. And it's so funny, Aaron, because I'm in this market here in the Chicago, the suburbs, in the city, and some of the higher price points. It is nearly impossible to determine the actual value with an algorithm. So the Zestimates are wildly inaccurate. We have, by 100, 200, 300,000, especially when you get into some of the pricier north side suburbs of Chicago, a property that's renovated properly with the finished basement, dug out, and you do spend $300,000, $350,000 renovating a property that might only be 2,600 square feet. And this estimate is it's going to be off dramatically. And so, I don't know necessarily that she's 100% accurate in the anchoring statement with this estimate throwing off that property. I'm sure there's probably some pricing issue going on there too, but it certainly does not help when you see this estimate at a significantly lower price than what you're trying to. Sometimes that's worked in our favor, and this estimate has been extremely low, and us as investors, we come in and it's a fair enough deal, and it kind of helped our situation. And other times we're going to sell a property, and this estimate's dramatically higher than what we have, and the anchoring works in our favor. That's a great point. Do you have one more anchoring or similar blind spot that we could touch on here before we sort of change this topic?
Confirmation bias is confirmation bias. The easiest place to see confirmation bias is just, the news cycle and the way the politics has devolved today, right? Where everyone is looking for information that supports their point of view and ignoring any information that counters their point of view, right? It's not hard to find examples of that in modern culture. And in fact, there's a phenomenon that's related to confirmation bias, which is fascinating to me, is this thing called the backfire effect, which is if you present evidence that's contrary to that which you believe, people double down on what they believe. So rather than contrary evidence helping to loosen the grip of the bias that you happen to be in, contrary evidence often has people double down on the reality that they're in the middle of. Fascinating. People are not interested in reality. People are interested in what they think, right? So confirmation bias happens. Yeah, but they already believe. And you go in and try and, hey, Mrs. Seller, here's what this is a fair value for this house. Here's the amount of work we have to do on it. And, and then they start coming up with the evidence for why you're wrong. And, they tell you the story about how when they sold the home in 1976, how much it cost and, what they did to it and how much it should be worth. But it should like that. And confirmation bias is also related to something that's known as the endowment effect. The endowment effect is we value things we own more than other people value it. If we own it, we value it more. Okay? Which is the normal tension in a transaction, is that I value my house, you value your money, right? We got to find a place where those two things match, right? That creates the selling price, right? But that kind of tension between that. But when people get, they fall in love with their home, I mean, that's where they got married, that's where the kids were brought up, like that, they value it too highly. And they're only interested in information. They're going to hire the person that tells them it's worth what they think it's worth. Confirmation bias, endowment effect at play. They're not going to listen to you say, listen, in a million years, that person can tell you it's worth $800,000, but are they going to pay you $800,000 for it? Because I can find no evidence that house is worth that much money. What evidence did they show you? They don't have to show this person evidence. And in fact, by showing them evidence that it's not makes them more, they then become more attached to the person that told them it was going to be worth $800,000. This just happened to me with another person. She went ahead and listed it for, it's a house that I think we could have gotten $850 for. She went ahead and listed it for $925. She's now down to $900. She went to $925. I thought we could get it $850. She's now been on the market 52 days. She's now lowered to $899. And you know what happens to a listing after 52 days? It gets old. No one wants it. People are not interested in the 52-day-old listing.
Yeah.
And she started at 830. We could have gotten 1 million people in there. We could have gotten her up to 850, 860. Now she's going to be lucky to get 830 for it because she's going to have to keep coming down. And she's, it's going to take her 90 damn days. But go have kids,
Yeah, so you just mentioned something that brought me back to something I had written down earlier. You mentioned that you sell your houses for 5% more than local average. And then you just dropped a little nugget right there, Aaron, that I caught, that you thought we could sell the house for $850, but you would probably have listed at $830. So I'm going to go ahead out on a limb and say, your pricing strategy helps to create some of that auction atmosphere, especially in a market like this. Can you kind of just go ahead and share the secret as to how you're managing to sell those properties for 5% or 10% more than the local averages?
Yeah, well, that's for sure. So first of all, you don't have to do anything in most parts of Seattle right now to cause a bidding war. It's literally impossible to underprice your house here. Okay, you cannot underprice it. Everything is going to go above asking price. In certain neighborhoods, to an obscene extent. But so the trick is, you definitely you got to have a realistic view of what you want to get. You have to do the comps. And, you had a brilliant nugget earlier about how there's nothing in the classes that teaches you how to do that. There's nothing in the classes that teaches you anything. Those classes, the training, the 90 hours to get trained to be a realtor are literally the most useless 90 hours I've ever spent. But besides that, so you price it, you get the exact price that you think it'll go for. You get the price that you really want it to go for, like what it would be great to sell it for. And then you create a strategy where you price it just sort of below what you think it'll sell for. So, a $550, we put on the market at $534, something like that, right? To attract enough people in there to get a competition going. Now that's fairly easy to get, but the piece that we do that's different, and this isn't a secret, this is just doing our job, and I think that's the problem. A lot of people don't like to work. But what we do is when we get the offers, right, so we set an offer review date, which is critical. You can't do it without an offer. You need all the offers at once to be able to do a bidding war. You need to get everyone in a pile. So, we'll list on a Thursday and we'll look at offers the following Wednesday. Again, fairly typical for the speed of a market. It's not always like this, but it has been for the last few years. So on that Wednesday, we'll collect all the offers. And we'll get, say, 6, 7 offers, okay? So suppose you have 6 offers. You get 6 offers, you take the best offer, you put it aside, you take the other 5 offers, and then what you have to do, and I swear to you people don't do this, and it blows my mind that they don't do this, is you call the other 5 offers. And you say, you're not the best offer. You're going to need to come up if you're interested. And then they call their clients and they come up. Boop, 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 boop. Right? Now you got a new top bidder. Good. So you take the 5 not. And you go back to them and you say, hey, you know what, you're still not the top. And you do that 3 or 4 times until you're left with everyone's highest and best offer. Now, that piece of calling them back, I can't even tell you how rare that is that other agents do this. And it blows my mind. What else? I literally got an email from an agent recently who said, I was writing an offer on this house. It said, we're anticipating 10 offers, at least 10 offers, and I won't have time to call everybody. So please make sure you're giving me your highest and your best. And I thought, are you joking me? What else do you have to do? Do you understand the word fiduciary? You have fiduciary interest to your client to get them the most money, and you're telling me that you won't have time to call me to get any more money out of my pocket. Do you tell your client that? I mean, look, she sold the house over asking. She got them more than she asked for it. She just didn't get as much as she could have. I got people it's infuriating from the buyer's perspective because what am I supposed to do? Tell my client, go in at $125,000 over asking right away. They really do need to give me a chance to come up, right? Why would you not give them a chance to come up? What's the advantage? People, A, don't like to negotiate in this culture, right? No one likes to negotiate.
Yeah.
And B, somehow, and they can sell it for over asking, which leaves their customer happy. The customer's happy. It's going to give them 5 stars in Zillow, and that's going to get them more customers. So it looks like she's doing her job, but she doesn't get as much over asking as she could. She is absolutely 100%. I have agents 100% left money in my pocket. They left money on the table. I'm fine with it from the buyer's perspective because they left my clients money on the table. But I know in many cases my clients would have come up had they even asked. And they don't ask. And if you want the secret sauce is do the work. Do your job. What does Bill Belichick say? Do your job.
Yeah, that's ironic. We have situations like that, too, where, I've had people, and I'm not going to call them out by name, but we'll have an offer coming from a buyer and $125,000 in cash. And basically their form of going back to see if that's their highest and best is shooting them a text message that says, is that your highest and best? Immediately. And I'm thinking to myself, well, they're going to say yeah, because you didn't give any indication that there was any other heat on the deal. There was no, hey, you're not the winning bid. Do you want to adjust and reconsider your offer? It's amazing to me, Aaron, and I'm sure you've had the same experience, like the simple choice of the correct wording of the conversation or the timing of the conversation in communicating the right words can net. I'm sure you've seen, like you just said, $125,000 over asking price. I mean, that's like a mind-blowing amount of money from doing the work, having the conversations, and saying the right words at the right time, right?
Yep. Again, I think it really does come down to, do you know what fiduciary means? Are you really going to do the best by your client? Yeah, crazy.
So I have, in order to get, a little bit better than the average market sale price in the area, I have to list the property slightly below the number that I feel like will realistically sell the property for. So in that example, we thought it would go for $850,000. We're going to list it at around $830,000 and then set a deadline. Number 2, that was something you said was real important, to set a deadline, typically 5 to 7 days out from the listing date. Are you adding that in the description of the MLS for the agents, like, hey, we're going to consider offers until Thursday at 5 p.m., or is that something that you're verbally communicating as you're getting the showing calls on your listing?
No, in Seattle, actually, it's built into the MLS now. It's standard now. Just so you're clear. In the MLS, there's a button you click, and it says offer review date. And it's now automatic. Wow. It's literally, I know.
Okay. So we're not as spoiled in many of the other parts of the country. So I'm sure someone's listening.
It's very unique.
Yeah. So, all right. So number 2, put the deadline in there. And the reason you're going to do that is to kind of create urgency and pressure and force people to make the decision or offer, in advance of that. Otherwise, they're going to be out in the cold and have no chance. And then number 3, go back and call each non-winner of the bids and tell them that they're not the best offer and see if they want to reconsider their offer price. Yeah. Cool. Aaron, is that deadline, you're treating that's a hard stop? I mean, at Thursday at 5, it's pretty much the end, or are you still making these calls after the deadline?
No. Well, it depends. If I don't get any offers, then for some reason I priced it wrong or the market was different, you just bail on the deadline. But other than that, it's a hard stop.
Yeah, I appreciate you touching on that. I mean, that's pertinent for investors, for agents, for sellers, for buyers to know how they're, what they're up against in this market. So appreciate you sharing that. Aaron, is there any other single idea, system, or strategy that you've implemented in your business over the last year or two and experienced exponential growth as a result, or even just more freedom in your business as a result of that system?
Not that I can think of, no. I mean, we have inside sales agents, people that do phoning for us, and that's been pretty great, having other people do cold calling for us and getting the leads, getting the appointments. But I can't think of anything in particular we haven't done anything new.
It's kind of the basics, right?
Radical. Yeah, I don't think we do anything radical.
Got it. And who is the most successful real estate investor or developer, and why do you believe they're successful?
Well, I think the most success, this is, again, I don't know, this is going to sound a little basic, but, the people that are the most successful people are the people that do the work. So I think in every field, there's the work, whatever that is, right? Investors, look, investing is made on the buy, not on the sell, right? It's made on finding the place, not when you sell it. If you didn't buy it right, you're not going to sell it. You're not going to make money on the other side. And I think that's, important for people to get, is that you've got to do the work. So I think the most successful investors are the ones that do the work, whatever that work is. Is it yellow letters, is it door knocking, is it phone call, but do it consistently, do it relentlessly, do it whether you feel like it or not. You're just going to do it. And you're going to do it, and you can do it, and you can do it, and then you're going to produce the results. But you're not going to expect the results if you don't do it. And you're going to, if you're doing what you think is it, and you're not getting the results, you're not doing it right. And you can go get coaching on that. So I don't know if that answers that, but I think those are the most successful investors.
Do you have 2 or 3 books that you have recommended most often, Aaron?
Well, there's that The Undoing Project that I talked about, right? The Michael Lewis book, The Undoing Project, which is killer. I always recommend that people read a book called Profit First. And Profit First is a book about running your business in a way that turns a profit. It's a different way of looking at how you run your spreadsheets and the way you operate. And I wish I had had that when I ran my bakery. It's sort of just such a great book on running a business. So anyone who's, doing investment, everyone listening to this podcast has their own business, whether you think you do it or not, right? And then I thought Robert Cialdini's book called Persuasion. It was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Just brilliant. I go on a lot. I drive, everywhere all day. So I'm always listening to, books on tape, whatever you call it, Audible.
Do you have any podcast recommendations that you found enjoyable that you might like to share?
Yeah. Let's see. There's a podcast by a couple of guys, Greg McDaniels and Ryan Johnson, called Real Estate Uncensored, and they are a riot and brilliant. Real Estate Uncensored. I like the Brainfluence podcast, which is about neuromarketing, very much like Persuasion. I think those are by far my 2 best resources, the ones I go to most.
If you could go back and share the crown jewel of wisdom with your 18-year-old self, what would that be?
Hey, all right, don't smoke so much pot and get off your ass and do some work. Get the work done. You will not always like being a hippie deadhead. There will come a time when you wish you had more stuff, more money, more stuff behind you. Don't get started so late. I mean, if I tell the truth, that's what I would tell myself.
That is exactly what I should have told my 18-year-old self. Cool. So how can people get some more information about you? Do you have a website or any information you'd like to share with the listeners if they'd like to reach out, Aaron?
Yeah, sure. So my website now is realestateBlindSpots.com. But the best way to reach me really is I'm about a month away from having a physical copy of the book. And the only thing I have right now that's set up to capture people's information is on the current book that I have, which is called Don't Get Fooled Again. And you can get that at don'tgetfooledagainbook.com, which is really what got me started on this. And Don't Get Fooled Again is much thinner. It's more like a lead magnet. But if you get on that mailing list, I will send you a free copy of the new book when it comes out next month so that you can get it. And the new book is actually a book, 250-page, real no kidding book. I'd be happy to send you a physical copy of it if you want it when it comes out. But the way to do it is to go to don'tgetfooledagainbook.com. REIdiamonds.com and register there.
I got it written down. I'm going to check that out myself. I'm looking forward to going through it. I really love, the psychological perspective, I guess you could say, with the real estate blind spots. I've really had a great time with our conversation here today. And, a lot of the reason for that, like some of the listeners may not know that one of the reasons we are successful here at Diamond Equity Investments is because we approach every interaction with our prospects, our clients, with the market, et cetera, with this type of, psychological detailing behind it. Like, what are the mechanisms that are, creating the circumstance, creating the results in our business? And I really admire the information. That was why I was so excited to get you on the show here today, is because, I'd done some digging. I'm like, wow, this is cool. Somebody else who's really approaching the real estate business from a completely different angle than just, sign the contract and sign the deed and go to settlement and sign a statement. So, Aaron, it was really an enjoyable episode for me, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on the show. Thank you.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for having me. It was really such a delight. I love talking about this stuff, and I particularly enjoy talking about it with someone who's interested and fun to talk to. And like I said, nice to talk to someone with an East Coast attitude. I'm stuck up here in Seattle where everyone's all passive-aggressive and nice. And so great
cool.
to hang out with you. Thanks.
I won't tell the clients, the Seattle clients, you just said that. Fair enough?
You don't have to. Fair enough. It's all good.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Diamond Show. Are you interested in receiving a notification when the next episode is released? You can either sign up for email at www.reidiamonds.com. You also get a copy of my book, Become a Wholesale Real Estate Master, or subscribe through one of the podcasting apps, including iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. If you are interested in selling a deal to me, please visit www.reidiamonds.com and click the link at the top of the page. I'm currently looking for deals in the Philadelphia tri-state area, Baltimore, Maryland, D.C. market, the Chicagoland region, the Atlanta region, and the Tampa Bay area in Florida. Finally, do you know anybody else who might also enjoy this episode? I'd appreciate the referrals, and I'm sure they would love the information talked about here as well. Last but not least, I appreciate you too, my loyal REI Diamond Show listener. Dan Breslin here. I'll catch you later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Diamonds Show with Dan Breslin. To receive email notifications of new weekly episodes, sign up at www.reidiamonds.com.